On this episode of the Brand Gravity Show, we're talking all about personal brands, which is a favorite topic of mine. I love the intricacies and the complications of building a brand that not only works in the marketplace, but it works with you and who you are as an individual and as a human, as somebody who's sharing their genius and making an impact. My guest today is Laura Bull. She is the founder of the Brand Management Company and also the author of the book From Individual to Empire. And we're going to dive into all of the nooks and crannies of what it takes to build a personal brand that actually works. Let's jump to the conversation. Laura, thank you so much for being on the show. I can't wait to dive into everything personal branding, but I would love to start. There's a huge confusion and misconception between branding and marketing, and I would love if we started there. Can you
Y-
speak to the difference?
Yeah, I mean that's the whole reason I wrote the book in the first place. Honestly, I noticed in the corporate world, people just kind of threw things out there and started marketing and going straight to the advertising plans and going straight to the digital marketing and everything, and there was really no brand to back it up, and so people wondered why the resources weren't stretching the way they needed to stretch, right? It was
Yeah.
taking more money, it was taking more time to launch projects. So really the easiest way that I boil it down to for people is that marketing is what you want to say for the next 20 days, but branding is really what you want to say for the next 20 years.
Mm,
Branding will literally dictate everything you do on the marketing side. So if you don't have a solid brand and if you don't understand what that brand is, you're just going to be flailing about on the marketing side. And so that's literally why I wrote the book.
I love that. I also came to the branding world through the lens of marketing because I realized the
Yeah,
same thing that
me too.
companies would be doing all of the right things marketing wise, but they didn't have a strong foundation to operate from, and it didn't work. And
Didn't work. Yeah.
yeah, it can be really frustrating. So you have a fascinating background. You come from the music industry. You worked for Sony and worked on some amazing brands. So we all recognize Carrie Underwood, Johnny Cash, Brad Paisley, etc. What did you learn about building a personal brand from that experience?
I learned that no two people are the same. Like we know that in the real world, right?
Yeah.
But when you're talking about, normal marketers go into a boardroom and they're trying to figure out what personality to put on a shoe, like
Right.
Nike, right? Or Adidas.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out how to sell something. I always use the Jeep analogy in the sense of like, when you think about a Jeep, you think outdoorsy, fun, rugged, these are made up in a boardroom, right? People aren't made up in a boardroom. They are who they are. And they're gonna tell you what they're gonna tell you, and they're gonna want to market themselves the way they want to market themselves. And you have to figure out how to help them put that into a Nike swoosh, you know? And so that took me 20 years to figure out. I'm not gonna lie. Like it took a while because people don't realize the difference from a technical way. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so it's really just boiling down, understanding, okay, what can we pull from this person's personality that will translate to who they want to be talking to, right? And who that
Yeah.
audience is. And really, it's only a couple of key things. Some people mess it up by sharing too much, so they want to hit on, and it's not about oversharing. It's about they want to hit on this and they want to hit on this. And oh, but I also agree with them over here. And I could appeal to this and I can appeal to this. It's like, okay, we get that, but you're not saying something if you're saying everything. So it's really trying to it's really learning how to deal with people and how to help them see themselves as a product and just give them that focus. And honestly, every single person that I work with, that when they do get that focus on the branding side, they get that sense of relief and that aha because they're like, oh, I can do all this stuff on the marketing now. Like it opens up a whole nother world of what you can do from a marketing perspective just by focusing in on the very beginning of the fundamentals.
Hmm. I love that you articulated that. And it's something that I've known for a long time because I work with a lot of personal brands, more in the space of like coaches, creatives, consultants, those
They're
types
all
of
the
people. But
same.
yeah, it's a whole different ball game when you're branding yourself because it has
Yeah.
to be authentic and it has to be true for it to be a catalyst for you to bring yourself forward in a confident way. Do you have any elements, and maybe this is going to tie back to your book, maybe not. We'll just riff with it here. What makes a successful personal brand in your eyes?
Consistency, clarity. I like to equate it to, and I do mention this in the book.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as the it factor, right? I learned that again. Hundreds of artists I have worked with, hundreds, and I've worked with actors. I've worked with everybody from Gwyneth Paltrow. I mean, I've literally worked with so many people, and you would think that they have this it factor, and that's what made them so successful, but it's not true. The key is if you have 2 minutes on the Tonight Show couch and you really have to project everything about your brand that's going to connect with an audience in less than 2 minutes, what do you say? The people that sit on that couch and they know exactly how to look, how to talk, what's their tone, what's their message, how are they saying things, what stories are they sharing? And again, the look, people actually make their decision on a brand in nanoseconds. And that's proven scientific fact. So it does speak to your message as well, how you look. The people that can sit there and clearly and definitively say who they are to their audience and have them understand it within 2 minutes, those are the people that get their brand. And those are the people that are successful. And I've had artists come into a boardroom and they know their brand 20 times more than the people in that room do. So it is even more important that they understand it so that they can explain it to the other people that are working on their team, right? And make sure that
Yeah.
everybody's on a clear front. So all of that kind of comes together to make a successful personal brand.
Yes. Do you have any strategies or favorite tactics or paths to get to that clarity?
So for me, yes, I've developed it over time. It used to be just conversations and getting to know the person that you're working with and trying to help them figure out, well, okay, so maybe this is important, right? Okay, so maybe we should focus on this. But now I've boiled it down to a questionnaire. Now it's an extensive questionnaire. It's part of our brand audit process here in my company. And it's the first thing that we do. And so we send a questionnaire to them. And it literally it asks them everything from their childhood memories to their life growing up to characteristic traits that they may not be proud of, but that are part of them, right? Characteristic traits that they are proud of, right? We do all kinds of personality testing and strengths finders, purpose builders, things like that. And then, you know, everything about their day-to-day lives, how they operate. Are they type A? Are they type B? I mean, we literally when we get it back from our clients, it usually takes them about 2 weeks to do, and it
Yeah.
is about 20 to 25 pages when we get it back. That is where we pull all of our information because, I'm not going to create somebody's brand for them. They have to tell it to me. But I'm going to ask it in a way where they don't know that they're telling it to me. I'm going to figure it out based off of what they tell me. And it's 100%. I will say 90% of the time people come to me because they're having a narrative issue and they don't understand how to focus that narrative and that message. 50% of the time it's the image, and really 20% of the time it's the service of the product, because I find that people spend their entire entrepreneurship trying to perfect whatever service and whatever products they're providing, but they're not paying attention to the other two things, right? So anyways, I kind of help them develop it through what they tell me. That's the best way I can do it. And honestly, I find that the questionnaire is even better than having a conversation. We have follow-up conversations, don't get me wrong. But when they don't know what I'm looking for, right? I just give it to them and then they go off and they do it. It's a personal thing. They go off and they do it themselves. There's nobody in their ears telling them, "Oh, well, I think you should do this." And Twitter the other day said you should do this, like
Yeah.
there's none of that interference. And I even give them specific directions, positive psychology 101. If this is overwhelming, go take a walk, go have a cup of coffee, those kind of things. So I just try to make it as easy as possible for somebody to just like tell me everything that they want to tell everybody in the world, and then I can kind of button it up in a nice little bow for them.
Amazing. And if you can dive into that process when you're looking at all of that raw data, what are you looking for? Like, how are you pulling a red thread through that
Oh,
big
so now you're
mess?
asking my secrets.
I
Um,
know.
it's funny because branding is very cyclical in how I put the things together. Because one thing affects another thing, which affects another
Yeah.
thing. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? So it's not just one path. I'm not going to come up with this first and then this first and then this first or next and next. So what I do is I get my report out and I start making notes and I start highlighting things. And yes, I'm looking for repetition, things that are
Mhm.
themes, definitely themes. I'm looking for the deeper themes of stories and of experiences and struggles and wins. I'm looking for the themes of why something was important to this person. Why did they write this down? Why do they want to be known, right? Why do they
Mhm.
support certain causes? And so I'm looking for the lowest common denominator that keeps coming up, right? And in my book, The Brand Matrix, there's kind of an overview of how that works with the Venn diagram, breaking down the three major elements of the brand: the product, service, the narrative, and the image that we've been talking about. And the
Mhm.
key that we're trying to do is find the brand pillars that are going to be in the middle of that. So easiest way for me to explain that is using an exercise I used to use in class. I used to teach college so that I could write this book so I could test it out on people. So one of the little exercises I used was, okay, so if I was talking to you and I was saying, oh my gosh, I can't remember this artist's name. She's a powerhouse vocalist and I cannot remember her name. Who is she? Like, help me out here. Like, help me figure out who it is. You'd be like, Whitney Houston, Carrie Underwood, right? 1,000 women could be powerhouse vocalists, right? Then if I was like, no, 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 she's got this mod thing. She's British. Well, then who are we talking about? It's Adele, right?
Yeah.
Like that narrows down the pool. So when I'm talking about the brand pillars in the center of the brand that are going to fall under the service product, the narrative, and the image all at the same time, it's the grouping of them together that makes it unique, right? So two or three of these traits and brand pillars could also describe another brand. But when it's combined with these two new ones over here, then it's unique in the marketplace. And so that's
Mhm.
the ultimate goal that we're trying to find.
Yeah, I love that. I'd love to explore image a little bit. I haven't done that a whole lot on this podcast yet. And it is so important because humans are visual. We're pattern recognition machines. We get like basically immediate understanding from things by looking at them. Yet I know a lot of my clients feel self-conscious because they're not 25 anymore. They're not like in the best shape of their lives. I'm sure you've heard all of these. How do you help people identify an image to own?
Well, it comes from the audit that we do at the beginning. And by the way, while our clients are doing their questionnaire, we're also doing marketplace research. We're doing all
Yeah.
of the what's out there already on this person. Like we're doing all that audit
Yeah.
in the background. So when we come up with the brand pillars, I'm never going to look at somebody and be like, oh, well, you're of a certain age. You need to dress like this. Like, I could say that for you, but Lady Gaga never took any words of wisdom on how to dress, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
anyway, I would have never been like, I think you should wear a meat dress, like,
Yeah.
never would have come up. So, it's about the person and what they feel comfortable with. And again, what they're telling me their personality is. And when we come up with the brand pillars, like let's say somebody has a brand pillar of distinguished, right? Okay, well, if you are a distinguished, for instance, scholar or something like that, distinguished also needs to be worked into your wardrobe, styling, hair, glam, everything, right?
Mhm.
If somebody has a brand pillar of rebelliousness, so pink, we can look to pink for that.
Yeah.
Pink had pink hair, right? But when she went blonde, it wasn't like she lost everything about her brand. It wasn't such a shocker to the audience because it wasn't changing a brand pillar, because the brand pillar was rebelliousness. She dyed her hair pink, not because she did because her name was pink, but um, obviously, throwback, go back to that. But when she went like Platinum Blonde, it did not change the fact that she was still considered rebelliousness as part of her whole brand identity. So, and that's another thing to look at when you're looking at developing someone's image. And it, by the way, image also is fonts, color palette, logos. I cannot tell you how many people have gone to a branding expert to go get a logo just be crazy or a website done. And they just basically have graphic designed something out that you could have made on Canva and it doesn't tell me anything about the person. I had somebody the other day show me their business card, just be like, kind of like a party trick. Like, what do you think about my logo? And I was like, honestly, like, I would have never thought you did that because this screams like lawyer to me. Like, I had no idea. The name of the company, that's another thing. Like, that's the first thing somebody reads. So anyways, it all comes together as part of the image and you have to present it as such. I mean, and it also comes down to social media feeds and all that stuff. One social media feed is more grid-like and formulated, that's going to be a more professional outlet. Yeah. Something that's more stripped down and gritty, that's going to be more, of a laid back casual tone. It all goes back to the narrative and what that personality of the brand is.
Yes. You are preaching to the choir here. I know. I always like to say we build brands on truth, not trends. I can't stand seeing people that are just like chasing the latest trend, but it isn't in alignment with who they actually are.
Okay. Like, no, I met a couple of I'm in one writer's group when I was writing this book, and which I highly recommend for anybody who's writing a book. And one of them has a daughter who's an actor, and she said, I love the book, obviously, and I love what you're doing. And I'm getting it for my daughter. And I think my biggest thing is like, she doesn't know what roles to go after because she really gravitates towards these types of roles, but they're not what pays the bills, right? And my advice to somebody, especially in the creative world, who is gravitating towards, you need to gravitate towards it because the trends will change. Those movies will become hit movies at some point. You never know when, right? But it will, if you stay true to again, it goes back to your narrative. So if you're being authentic, your brand is who you are. So if you're being true to your brand, the revenue streams will come and you can find very unique revenue streams that are beneficial to your niche. Yeah. So, and most actors don't make money just off of their movies these days anyways. They have to have other revenue streams. So that's what I help them figure out.
Amazing. I love that. Okay. Talk to me about this word influencer. I know that you talk about redefining what it means and how we associate with the word.
Yeah. I mean, basically, I think influencer is one of these hot topic words that everybody overuses, but then it doesn't mean anything, I just want to remind people, right? Like Aristotle is an influencer, but he's not on social media, and I'm not trying to take anything away from influencers who are content creators on social media. I'm just saying that word has a actual farther reach than what we use it for. Yeah. And in different ways, your local pastor is an influencer. And really in the book, I kind of break down the macro level influencers and the micro and the subject matter experts so that you can kind of just visualize what the audience is going to look like at what stage. So you're not just spinning your wheels and you're figuring it out. A mom on the PTO board is an influencer. It's just her circle's very small, right? Mm-hmm. So it just depends what your circle is and how you build that circle and what you want to build it to. But, George Clooney is literally out there changing the world and he's not on social media. Yeah. So obviously you don't need, social media is just a platform to communicate your message to the audience. And you as a marketer know that, but most people don't understand communication channels. And don't forget, I mean, what happens tomorrow if Facebook shuts down and, regulators come in and you're off and you've spent, $10,000 just in 1 year alone, just with advertising, trying to build an audience of followers, right? If you're not driving those people to actual revenue sources, i.e. your website I mean, I have people that are like, well, why do I need a website when I have Facebook? I'm like, oh my God. Okay, I'm going to
Oh,
need a
dear
minute.
sweet child.
So, yeah, I mean, if you're not actually capturing your consumers in a place that you have ownership of that,
Mhm.
then who knows what's going to happen. I had a friend who was like the king of Vine. I mean, he was a musician and he's a very successful musician, but he spent literally day and night on Vine. And you know what? It worked. He got all kinds of followers on it and he was getting new fans and everything. And then that went bye bye.
Yep.
And where are the followers? Where are they? Right. So
Yep.
social media is just one channel. And if you're not looking at all the other channels that you can utilize, then you're also leaving money on the table and not even realizing other revenue streams that you can be tapping into.
Mhm. This is a good segue to my next question. What are some of the most common mistakes that you see when people are trying to grow their influence, grow their audience, grow their revenue, all of those things?
Well, one thing is not interacting. If you're going to invest in social media, it is an investment. It is a lot of time. It is a lot of creation. If you're only spending 80%, right, and you're not doing the full 100%, then it's not worth it. And in the same vein, one of the biggest things I see, and from a marketing perspective, yes, we want our clients to be everywhere. We want all the impressions. We want millions and millions and millions of impressions. But it's just like I can't afford a Super Bowl spot, right? A 30-second
Yeah.
Super Bowl spot. It's the same thing with resources of time spent. It's not just about money. Most entrepreneurs and most starting out influencers and content creators do not have the resources available to be on every single social media platform, and they should not try. And so then the next question inevitably is, okay, well, which one should I be on? Look to your
Yep.
brand. What does your brand say? Who are the target audience and what is your tone? How do you communicate your message most effectively? They're all different, right? All the platforms are
Yeah.
different. So pick the ones that make the most sense. It could be one. You don't have to be on 80, or all the new ones,
Yeah.
Clubhouse,
Threads. Yeah.
Threads.
X. Whatever.
I know. I'm like, it's part of my job. I got on Threads, but I don't, yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I mean, it sounds exhausting. Just
I don't
talking
post on
about it.
Threads. I just jumped on there to make, like, I had my clients grab and that is the thing.
Yeah.
I would have your clients grab the handle so that
Right.
nobody can, fake news and all,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't have to, you can literally put in the profile, go there for updates or whatever. You don't have to
You're right.
actually utilize it. Save your
Yes.
time, save your resources, spend that money elsewhere.
Amazing. So your book is called Individual to Empire. Give us a view of the landscape. What are some of the elements that make up an empire as opposed to somebody who's just a human?
Well, it's the multiple revenue streams, right?
Yeah.
So if and longevity, if in the world of follower counts, right? People are being judged based off of how many followers they are, and most of those people don't have a penny to their name because they're not building an actual business behind it, right?
Right.
So you don't really know how successful somebody is based off of how many followers they are. It's a vanity number. So I think really how to build that empire is to understand that you are the CEO of a business and you are building a business with multiple revenue streams, offline and online. If you
Yeah.
are doing that appropriately, then you will naturally be growing. You will naturally be hitting the target audience. You will hopefully, if you, and this is another thing, branding is not a one time done deal. You constantly have to brand, that was back in the 60s. People were like, oh, you go through a branding process and you're done. And now it's marketing's turn to take over. Like, no, marketplaces change. Lots of companies struggled at COVID because the
Mm.
pandemic shifted consumer behavior so much in every single industry. And so many companies did not know their brand well enough to know how to pivot in that situation. And the ones that did stood out and you really could tell. So I think that evolving over time is also necessary, and evolution does not mean change. You do not want to change your brand because then that necessitates a rebrand and it gets all confusing and crazy and muddled and the consumer gets confused and that's never good. But if you evolve it slowly over time, like a Pepsi logo from 1898 to now, right? These slow, steady steps, if you can see how you need to evolve over time, that sets up longevity and that builds the empire.
Hmm. I feel like there's another layer to the personal brand evolution as well, because not only does the market context shift, but sometimes you shift as a human, like you shift as the individual
Yes.
behind the brand as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that does happen. And so if that does happen, so I've had that happen for a couple of people I've worked with. And then
Yeah.
what the problem is they typically try to stay in the old brand, right? But then the people are like, well, this isn't working for me. And they
Yeah.
can't quite put their finger on it. Consumers don't necessarily know what it is. Now they are getting more hip to narratives and they're getting a little bit more hip to what's going on, but behind the scenes. But if you don't evolve correctly and authentically, then you're gonna lose your audience. They're not gonna be
Mhm.
interested anymore in what you have to
Yeah.
say. They're just gonna move on. It's not like they're gonna rebel or they're not gonna get mad at you. They're just gonna be like, I'm not getting it anymore. I'm just gonna go
Yeah.
over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is very, very important to do it correctly.
Yeah. Our audiences, those are smart humans with brains, and we are all
Right.
natural BS detectors. So as
Yes.
soon as you like move out of alignment with yourself, you
And it's
can,
and they may not know what the BS is, but
yeah.
they smell the BS. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah,
Exactly.
totally.
Exactly. You've mentioned multiple revenue streams and having a real business set up like behind the persona. What are some of the more unique revenue streams that you've seen people tap into?
I mean, books, and I'm just trying to think of like PD companies
Yeah.
and jewelry lines and liquor
Yeah.
companies, eyewear. I mean, it has to be unique to that person or people won't care. Why do I need? I mean, I'll just go get my normal Donna Karen classes. I don't need whoever classes, right? If there's no new thing about it won't matter, right? So, but obviously speaking is a
Yeah.
revenue stream, appearances, you know, then, content creators get a to them as
Yeah.
well. So that's also a revenue stream because they're not spending the money? I mean, that's a good question. I wish I could come up with something like super fun, but
Oh, I love all that. I mean, I'm hearing like a wide variety of products or e-commerce brands. I'm sure we can all think of a million different celebrities or
online
influencers.
portals, online
Yeah.
portals is a big
Membership
thing.
things. Yeah, business is so fun, especially through building a personal brand because it gives you a little bit more flexibility to tap into different business models with
Yeah.
you in the center of it, which is amazing.
Well, and look at all
Um,
your biggest influencers in the world. They have businesses, right? Like, so
yeah,
Rihanna, yes, a huge, pop star, but like she has multiple businesses under her and she's a
yeah,
billionaire because of it. So
ex-
obviously the music itself is a business. People don't realize how many millions of dollars, these artists are responsible for because it's 200 people under them. And then
yeah,
all their partnership companies that also rely on the money that's coming in. So that's how the music industry works anyways.
super
Anyways,
interesting. Well, I
super
could talk to
interesting.
you for hours, but where can they find the book? Where can they find you? Where should they go
So
next?
that's the book. The hardcover just came out. It's in all the major retailers, but Hudson News and the airports is still carrying it for a while. So get that one. And then my agency is the brand management company. So it's thebrandmgmt.com.
And my final question for somebody who's listening who wants to grow their personal brand, what is one action you would recommend that they take after listening to this episode?
Well, I'll obviously get the book.
Yeah,
But
obviously.
honestly, the reason, and I'm not kidding, is because the first part, and so the book is split up into three parts. The first part of the book is that introspection level. So, and at the end of, and I do exercises throughout the book. It's a
Okay.
fun book. It's got stories and stuff about celebrities and pop culture and whatever, and people I've worked with. But at the end of every chapter, there are action steps. And so it's literally, this is what you need to do right now after reading this chapter to help build so that you're ready for chapter 2. And so by the end of the book, the goal is that you have a brand statement. And it's basically a mission statement, but it includes your shared values with your audience and your purpose and your brand pillars and all of these things that you'll learn how to develop within the book. So, for $10, I mean, it's the easiest thing to do because building a personal brand does start with the introspection. And if you don't have the tools to do that, it could get really messy. So I
Yeah.
think that would be my biggest.
Amazing. Laura, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your stories and your experience. I enjoyed this conversation so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just loved it. I geek out over all this stuff. So anytime.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Brand Gravity Show. I love having these conversations. Thank you for being here. I hope that you learned something new and insightful from Laura. she's a kindred spirit. So I enjoyed the conversation a lot. These are a lot of the same topics that we talk about often in my Brand Clarity Collective, which is my membership program that gives you access to me each and every week. So if you are building a brand and you want some more support, some more camaraderie, and momentum building in your own brand building journey, I would love to have you in the Brand Clarity Collective. And again, thank you for being here. Keep building your brand, keep sharing your genius, and I will see you in the next episode.